Welcome on into the Wolverine.com podcast. Clayton Sayfie here with Anthony Broome. We are at Chrysler Center, the home of the Michigan Wolverines basketball team. This is actually a mural behind us, but we're in the concourse at Chrysler Center. We're looking at the big sign that says the house that Kazi built. Anthony, it is great to be here on Michigan Basketball Media Day, where we got to talk to Dusty May, the assistant coaches, every single player in the program that we wanted to. It was like a fun factory of basketballs, and all-you-can-eat buffet of basketball coverage here at Chrysler, and a heck of a day.
It was a cacophony of basketball in the house that Kazi built. Yeah, good day, productive day. It's one of those days where you talk to so many people where you're not gonna be able to fully absorb it. After we record this, we're literally heading to Schembechler Hall to talk to football players. So it's been everything today has been breakneck speed. But to get a baseline with this team and get our first look at them, hard not to be excited. A lot of good pieces out there, a lot of guys moving up and down the floor, a couple guys banged up. We'll get into that. But I see what they see when they put this roster together.
No question. Let's get right into it. But before we do, head to the Wolverine.com. You can use the promo code UM1 right now for 2 months of premium access for just $1. Anthony is going to have observations on every single player from practice. I'm going to have takeaways from the entire day. We're going to have much more content over at the Wolverine.com. So check it all out. And our Chris Ballas, not here today because he was at the Tigers game, and they brought home a win. So it was a great day all around. I am extremely jealous of him, and shout out to CB for
told him we'd only be
for bringing one home.
We told him we'd only be mad at him if they lost.
Exactly. So. But okay, so let's get into it. And you mentioned a couple injuries. Let's just start with that off the top. Merez Johnson Jr. didn't practice. I think Dusty said he tweaked an ankle recently, but looks fine and nothing long term, was no real concern. LJ Kaysen tweaked an ankle. I think Dusty said a couple of weeks ago. He was out there, maybe looked a little slower, or maybe it was just my imagination because we had that information. But LJ looked pretty good in general, so that's kind of the health of it. Let's start here with Dusty's opening statement from his press conference today. He said, "We're working to build a championship caliber chemistry and culture." And by all accounts, of course, it's like they're not going to present something that doesn't look like these guys like each other and whatever. But, conversations we had today on and off the record, this team is really tight. They've meshed together really quickly. And it's exciting to think about the possibilities because that's without even mentioning the talent.
And the talent is immense.
Exactly.
That's something not to be forgotten here. I think the biggest thing is that, and again, it's an open door practice to us. Everyone's on their best behavior, right? I can remember a couple years ago, though, when Juwan Howard's here, we got to watch him stretch, and then we heard stuff about busted lips and black eyes.
Oh, we got the 3-man weave, too.
We got the 3-man weave. Don't want to speak inaccurately here, but you do sense like there is a connectivity, there is a chemistry there. I think in this era of college sports in general, whenever you bring in a coveted piece out of the transfer portal like a Yaxel Lendeborg, the focus is on the money and what it took to land him. And, the implication for a lot of people is that those guys might be a bit of a diva or inherently selfish. And Yaxel Lendeborg's out here like one of the guys, cracking jokes. And he was actually a team correspondent for Media Day, so he's interviewing teammates.
That video will probably come out. Yeah, you guys will see that.
That will definitely come out.
Yeah.
We rewind to earlier this summer when we were at the Club of Greater Flint's golf outing. Yaxel Lendeborg, Namari Burnett. I think it was just those two guys. Maybe another player was there.
Correct.
It was just after Yaxel had committed, signed to Michigan, and already felt like he was comfortable and one of the guys. You get the sense even more that he's a connector off the court here. And on the court, this guy's basically a point guard. It's another point forward experiment. So just an example of the number of guys that are on this roster that, they have a role, they have a plan for them. And the chemistry, that was one of the first things that stuck out to me. They're not goofing off during practice, but they're putting in good work and having fun doing it too.
Yeah. And let's start with Yaxel then, because apparently, we always hear about this, right? Namari Burnett's daily routine. He's the same guy every day. He's consistent. And, by all accounts, it was unbelievably huge that they got him back. And Yaxel Lendeborg is at 90% of Namari Burnett's, prehab, they call it, getting his body right before practice, all that, maybe even on an off day, yoga once a week with an instructor, yoga and stretching every day without one. if he's not going into a class, that sort of thing. And Yaxel's been at 90% of those. So Amari Burnett has taken a lot of these guys under his wing, including the older guys. He said he's taking some of the younger guys under his wing, and I said, yeah, and maybe one of the, probably the second oldest guy on the team too. And he started laughing, but like this, this speaks to the cohesion as well. You mentioned what he did on the floor. Let's move on to a couple pleasant surprises. Dusty May said Malik Cordell, the 7-footer out of Germany, maybe one of the most pleasant surprises. Trey McKinney, they thought he was really good. He's even exceeded their expectations so far. The guard out of Flint. And you could see that on display. As we're going to kind of weave in here with what Dusty said and what we saw at practice ourselves. It's just going to kind of flow. But I saw some really good things out of Trey McKinney. He's a hell of a shooter. Malik Cordell is a beast. I don't know that he's going to, be in the rotation right away. He might be, but he's going to play this season. He's not redshirting. He's not as much of a project, I think, as I initially thought he was going to be. Winters Grady is a heck of a shooter as well, and kind of has like a Klay Thompson type of shot. I texted you. We were across the arena from each other, and that was one of my observations. So as far as the newcomers, the pleasant surprises, those are the things that stood out to me the most. That freshman class is really good.
It's really good. And I don't want to overstate it, because I'll start by saying this. The guy I was most impressed to see, and typically in these settings at all, the guys you're going to be more interested to see, maybe the guys you're most impressed by, are the ones that we're not going to see a ton. Malik Cordell he's a lob threat.
There were so many lobs thrown today. Not Merez, but they said he's one of the best lob threats. Adai Mara, Malik Cordell, they just kept throwing it up to him.
He's every bit the freakish athlete that they fell in love with. Now you got to teach him how to play basketball, right? And that's gonna. I'll just say this: I don't think he's gonna redshirt. And there are going to be a couple of games probably in February, maybe even early March, maybe in March Madness, where maybe you're in foul trouble and you just need a couple good Malik Cordell minutes between TV timeouts. That's going to be fun to watch when he does put it all together. And it is going to take some time, but I think he has the ability to be to run the floor. I think he has the ability to, obviously, like we said, be a lob threat. I think if he gets this down, he's got all the tools to be a really good rim protector too in a couple of years. But the fact that guy is probably your fourth banana in the center rotation that they have. When last year, if Vlad Golden got hurt or Danny Wolf was in foul trouble, you're playing Will Cheddar minutes at the 5.
Well, and Akeem Miskadeen said that too. I asked him about the depth in the front court, and he said, yeah, when he started laughing and said when Vlad and Danny went down, he didn't say these words, but I'll say them for him. They were kind of screwed for however much of a portion that was. When you looked at the efficiency stats with Danny and Vlad on the floor together, they were through the roof offensively and defensively. When one of them was on the floor, they could survive it, and they were a good team. And when neither of them were out there, which wasn't very often because they couldn't afford to do it, they weren't very good. So, yeah, the depth in the front court, and I know they've made this comparison throughout the offseason to Florida and what they were last year with having 3-4 capable bigs that can go in there, and you have to be able to have that. The depth to keep them fresh. Foul trouble is going to happen. You're going to play with physicality. You have guys you can cycle through there. They have that on this team.
Yeah, and I don't. Maybe we were going to get to this, and not to steal thunder, but no. I think when you look at the front court, the depth and the optionality you have there now, which they're going to be playing small ball 5 with Yaxel Lendeborg. They're going to be playing minutes out there where Yaxel Lendeborg is basically your point guard. There are going to be times where Adai Mara and Merez Johnson Jr. and Yaxel Lendeborg are all out there together.
That is going to happen, yes.
1,000%. So I think, if you're going to be a Big Ten title caliber team, national championship, Final Four caliber team, you have to sort of be, I don't know, I don't know how to describe it. But
malleable, chameleon type. Yeah.
You have to be able to zig when your opponent zags.
Right.
You need to play different styles and different sort of forms of basketball. And I think they have the tools in the front court to do that.
Think of the second weekend of the tournament in 2018. They hit 1 million threes, beat A&M. The next game against Florida State, nothing went down. And you're playing this grinded out game against a Leonard Hamilton team that's an elite defensive unit, and you win that way too. You grinded it out. That's just like the first example that pops into my head about playing different ways. We saw it with Michigan last year to a certain extent, but this team has way more options. I like that word optionality. I think you're totally right. You're also going to have to be unselfish if you have this much talent on the team. And Dusty May has been in a similar spot before where they go to the Final Four at FAU. The next season, they're a top 10 team. Everyone wants to talk about them. Every national writer wants a free trip to Boca Raton to go talk to Dusty and the entire team that all came back. The expectations were through the roof, and they didn't meet those expectations. They go to the dance. They I think they were a 9 seed or an 8, and they lose in the 8-9 game to Northwestern in a weird game. And we saw a weird game here, overtime game against them last year too. So you're going to have to, Dusty was asked about the minute allocation. Then he said, I don't know yet about the minute allocation. We still have several weeks. There are certain guys that have played well together, certain guys that, combinations that work. We still have a lot of data to gather before we make those decisions. But we're going to have a shared sacrifice. And he said one of the things they did wrong in that final year at FAU, as I hit a button on the mic, am I still going?
You should be.
Okay, yeah, I'm good. Is that they thought the more of, okay, everyone's back. We want more points, minutes. Everybody wants more, right? You're coming back for another season. And they said, well, we're going to play really fast, so everyone's going to have a bunch of opportunity and all this stuff. And it didn't really happen that way. You're not going to have that many extra possessions. My read of it, and I've read about, the Athletic has chronicled this and all that back in a couple of years ago at FAU. Egos got in the way a little bit. It just kind of wasn't the cohesion. They weren't the Cinderella story anymore. There was just more pressure and all that got into it. So it's different this time around at Michigan, but having gone through that, I think that staff learned some lessons.
And part of the reason it's different too is because that FAU team brought almost everybody back.
Exactly.
Whereas this team, it's an infusion of new guys, new talent. I think you're deeper in a lot of areas.
But how is Merez Johnson going to react when a Daimara goes off and Merez plays 11 minutes instead of 21?
Well, and
I'm not even saying that's just one example. You could flip it. You could say LJ Kaysen doesn't play. You could say Gale has a game where he doesn't play.
And I think they've been pretty transparent about that. That was part of the pitch too.
Yes.
In order to get these guys to come, or at least sell what you were selling to these guys, there was obviously not legally binding agreement, but when you agree to come to this situation, this is what you're signing up for, to play top 10 caliber basketball, Final Four caliber basketball, national championship caliber of basketball. So I'm not to a certain extent, especially because we've seen this at Michigan before, that year that they went to the Elite Eight, they brought in the #1 recruiting class the year after that, and expectations were through the roof.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously they struggled to make the NCAA tournament, did get to the Sweet 16, but there was a lot of unfulfilled potential there. I'm not going to say it's not possible, but you continue to hear all the right things. I think they're led by the right guy to sell that message to them. And football, we hear him talk about all the time, the team over me thing. I really do think that this group is going to have to personify that to get to those goals, because on any championship team, there are guys that are going to have to give up a little bit so everyone gets more in the aggregate. And that's going to be the dynamic that Michigan has to figure out, that they're still working through, as we're 5-6 weeks away from the season. I'm not as worried about that, but that's always, especially now with how volatile roster turnover is. You could have the biggest expectations and not meet them, or you could be like Michigan last year, not have as high expectations coming into the year and everything hits, and then you're in the Sweet 16. So I feel like they're not failure proof, but I feel like they have proofed a lot of areas within the program to not allow for a letdown.
Mm-hmm. All right, a few quick hitters here because we do have football availability. One, Dusty May has PTSD over the February shooting woes last year. He said he checks the assist turnover ratio every day after practice with the analytics that they track throughout, and he checks the 3-point shooting percentage. He said that the 3-point shooting percentage has been higher than he expected so far. Offensive rebounding percentage been a little bit lower than he thought, but I think we all agree this team has great potential to be a good offensive rebounding team. There were some times where, in some of these drills today, there were a ton of offensive boards. There was a 5-on-4 drill, so you're going to expect to get a lot there. But still, there were in 5-on-5, you saw some. just a lot of size out there that just makes them and shrinks the floor, as Akeem Miskadeen said, makes them an imposing defense. So I think they're going to be a good defensive rebounding team as well. Roddy Gale had a 2-week stretch here in the preseason where he's looked like the best player on the team. He is going to play some backup point guard for this team as well and looked really good out there. Took a spill, went down for a second, and got helped up, and he was fine and came back in. But just a gritty Roddy. He's going to be on the floor. He's going to be finding ways to win, and I think he found something at the end of last season.
Yeah, I think part of what his renaissance late in last year was letting more of those hustle plays turn into, offensive confidence, defensive confidence. And we saw like there were games even late last year after all the struggles he had where they went as he did. So to hear that he had, and they could probably pinpoint any portion of the summer and be like, oh, well, that 2 weeks, Jax Lindenberg was our best player. And that 2 weeks was Roddy Gale.
There are going to be a lot of weeks when that's
there are going to be a lot of stretches like that in season where so-and-so has a couple bad games, but this guy picks it up. And that's more of that sort of that championship level of depth that you need to have. I'll just say like Roddy Gale, who seems like he just made another 3 in Denver, by the way.
Yeah, I think A&M, they just allowed another one.
Just raining from above. That he needs to just be I think if he could just be a little more consistent, what that unlocks for everyone is immeasurable. And I think a lot of people look at Trey McKinney coming in and they circle him as the guy that's going to replace Roddy Gale and things like that. It's a little premature for that, but Roddy Gale is very much going to have a say in how this season goes. And if the feedback they're giving is to be believed, and all of the hype's around Jax Lindenberg, but he could be one of those straws that stirs the drink here.
Elliot Cadeau is going to be the straw that stirs the drink for this team, shooting 50% catch and shoot from 3 so far in the preseason, according to multiple coaches here today, and looks really good off the catch. Like his shot looks good, doesn't look as good off the bounce. Of course, that's kind of the issue, and you would love to have a point guard that can do that. But at the same time, he's creating so many open looks for these guys. Talking the players, I think something I asked almost all of the ones that I spoke to were, does it feel like you are just getting the ball when you're open a little bit more with the guys that are running the show, and namely Cadeau, right? I didn't want to make it a Trey Donaldson versus Cadeau thing, but certainly makes a difference. The toughness drills, we got to witness those that Michigan put in this summer, and I think started to do a little bit more. I think they called them physicality drills at the end of last season, leading into the Big Ten tournament. Managers just mauling guys with pads and
mauling. That's not an exaggeration.
Ricky Lieber, the true freshman, who looks like a heck of an athlete, got hit to the ground as he was dribbling, because that's how much the managers are coming after him. Now, at the same time, this team has been constructed where toughness is not going to be an issue. And I asked Roddy Gale about that, and he said it's not going to be an issue ever again with Dusty May here, because he learned what the Big Ten was. He constructed the roster this year and is going to continue to construct the further rosters to play in this league. And the Big Ten's going to evolve and things are going to change too, and he's going to be right there with it. So no real concern there, but this team they're going to be more of a bully this year. There's no question in my mind about it. But the physicality is definitely an emphasis in practice. We saw it with those drills, but even outside of those drills, Daimara, Dusty May was really getting on him to be a little bit more physical. Dusty May, by the way, was fiery and getting on guys and commanding all practice long, and he ran that pretty much that entire practice. Assistants were chiming in, but he was in full control. People will see that when we release the video here on our YouTube channel, that Dusty was fiery today for sure.
If that's maybe the headline is Dusty May in full control of the program. He, the command of the practice. You talked about sort of how much he's emphasizing the assist to turnover stuff, the shooting numbers, the physicality. That's the one thing about the talking point with football has been, wide receivers have to catch the ball. You can't just say catch the ball, or you can't just say you have to be more physical. You have to rep that now more than any other time.
You give a pad to a manager and you tell him to
give him hell.
Yeah, exactly.
I just think that it was so, and not that it was a miscalculation in their preseason prep. They were putting so much ahead of last year, but you have to set that tone now, because in season, I'm going to I'm just throwing an example. I'm going to Madison to play a game on a Wednesday night, and then I get home late, and I got to turn the page quickly to get my guys ready to play Maryland at home on Saturday.
And they need rest.
Right. So this is the time of year where that stuff is put in. And they've talked about how they've proofed a lot of these things via their roster construction, whereas Johnson is not. He's not going to let guys bully him in the post.
No, he's a bully.
Adai Mara, not going to let guys bully him down there. Yaxel Leatherborg can guard 1 through 5, and he gets after it on the defensive end.
So, his relentlessness, if that's a word, on the glass, to just find every tip ball and get the basketball. They're just going to, this team's going to be a bully. This team's going to be a bully. I'm fully convinced of that. They're going to play fast. They're going to be physical. They're going to be just fine in those areas. They're going to be some area that crops up in the beginning. What Yaxel Leatherborg gets off to a slow start, or you haven't figured out how to use a dime. Like, there's going to be all that stuff throughout the season, but they're going to be a really good team. How far they can get remains to be seen, obviously, and it's still early. But Anthony, I am excited because 3 weeks from Friday, I believe it is, or is it only 2 weeks from 2 weeks from Friday? So less than 3 weeks from today, Michigan basketball against Cincinnati, October 17th, 6 p.m. Chrysler exhibition game the night before the Washington game. I'm pumped.
I'm very excited to see this team in a competitive setting, because even, there are things that you can't tell in these exhibition games. But I think back to last year when we went to Little Caesars Arena, watched them play the exhibition game against Oakland, and they were kind of turning the ball over a lot. I'm like, man, that's a concern. That's something they got to get cleaned up. And they was
like, it'll
be fine. It's an exhibition game. And then there are things in games like that where I think they shot the ball pretty well in a game like that. And then that isn't something that winds up being a constant for them throughout the year, at least in the second part of the season. So I think there are certainly things to glean from it. I think that, and the whole reason that they schedule these, they're not scheduling Saginaw Valley State anymore to play their exhibition games.
And now you can make NIL from it too. So you have to. But are you about to say
you're playing competitive games and getting different looks before the season even starts? Which I know a lot of coaches might even say they're okay with losing the game because of the lessons that you learn.
Dusty said that this is what makes you shake your head and you're like, man, this guy is special. Where he said today, I'm one of the rare coaches that I want to lose in the exhibition. He's not going to coach to lose, but he wants to get exposed was the word that he used as well in an exhibition setting against a good team. And he respects St. John's, he respects Cincinnati, and he feels like that his team may experience that. And that's going to help them grow right away because they have a really tough non-conference slate, and the Big Ten figures to be really tough as well. And they got probably an average draw in the Big Ten, but MSU, OSU, both, 2 games.
This team needed a buzzer beater to beat a bad Rutgers team last year. It needed every night out in this conference is a war. And
you got Duke in February.
You go to Duke, you play that game against Duke in DC. It's just, this season is going to be a war almost every night out. And you like to see the Warriors that they have.
Mm-hmm.
This is a roster that
we're going to learn a lot early.
I think is up for the challenge. And even if they struggle a little bit early, I think this will pay off because of how talented they are, because of how deep they are. And we'll see, March, you're a bounce of the basketball from going to the Final Four or being knocked out in the first weekend. Mm-hmm. It's so tough to tell, but they have what they need, both on the sidelines, in the program, with the talent they have to do everything that they set out to do.
And last observation, as you say that on the sideline, every guy was getting coached constantly too they have a huge staff that are all contributing and they're all on the same page. So it's like Dusty was going over and stopping the drill and saying, no, the ball needs to go there because, the guy hedged or whatever it was. Meanwhile, Akeem Miskadeen's walking out on the floor, or Mike Boynton's walking out on the floor to a specific guy and being like, hey, you got to communicate on that one, that switch there or whatever. It's just constant basketball. The guys just hooping, getting taught, learning situation. A lot of situational basketball today as well. 0.8 seconds on the shot clock, baseline out of bounds, all these sorts of things. It was awesome to watch. We have the video up on the YouTube here shortly. So if you're listening now or watching it, it's probably up right now. And that's it from Chrysler today. I'm sure we'll have more as it goes along. I know we'll have more at thewolverine.com. You can use the promo code UM1 for 2 months of premium access for just $1. And we will see everyone next time.